Hello, Adam Witt. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hello, good to be here.
Yeah, I'm totally stoked about this one, especially. And I've said that a couple times, but this one I can actually say especially. Because it wasn't till recently that I found out that you were born about 45 minutes down the road from where I live and where I was born. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
Right, this is a very similar birth. We have very similar birth stories, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, let's get right into this. I'm stoked because there's a lot of local places I want to ask if you're familiar with it.
All right. Oh, I should have worn my. I do have a Oxford, Ohio shirt that the sub shop there, the bagel and deli shop. Someone got me that for Christmas a couple years ago.
I've been there a couple times. Got Houston Woods out by there, that out
Yeah.
that way too. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
good
yeah.
time.
It's a paradise. It's a paradise.
It really is right in the middle of Ohio. No one would ever really realize it.
It's such a hidden paradise, and it's so funny. I talk to people. Well, we'll get to Oxford. We'll get to Oxford.
But yes, the name of the show is From Birth to Schmoedown. So, Adam Witt, where were you born?
Let's start with birth. In the words of what is the Schizopolis, the Steven Soderbergh movie, first I am born, then the trouble begins. I was born in Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, that's great. And
Yeah.
that's right down the road.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of which hospital it was. It's probably the Good Samaritan, I believe.
There in Trotwood,
Yeah, I think so.
there
Yeah.
by Amber Arena.
Yeah, okay, yeah, is that where it's at? It's been a while since I've been there, but yeah.
Uh,
Good.
I think they've actually shut that hospital down within the last couple of years or so.
Well, I've got other stories that said maybe that should be shut down, but my birth was one of their successes. I'll say that.
Oh, absolutely, I completely agree. Where did your family come from? Dayton, like generations, or did they move in there from somewhere else?
There was a whole generation in Dayton, and before that, it was the woods. It was the hills of Kentucky. So, like, I mean, talk about the need for upward mobility, so that you don't remain, impoverished your entire life. I mean, the possibilities of upward mobility because of the Depression in World War II and opportunities. Like my grandpa built the road. He was one of the first to leave the hills to get a job in the big city. The big city being Franklin, Kentucky. I think my grandpa built the road to Franklin, Kentucky, and which kind of separated from his family as more of an outward bound type of guy. Like, I'm going to the big city of Franklin, Kentucky. And then it was just then there was more factory work and stuff like that. So my family and my grandparents wanted out of the hills of Kentucky. It's a very interesting thing when you're born into poverty, which I was as well. A different kind of poverty than they were born into, but that desire to get out of it. I don't think it was imbued to them by their parents who were coal miners and or just doing whatever work came by. They were pretty exploited as workers because the companies would come through to cut down the trees and make barrel staves. So they're like the barrel stave people would come by and they would pay the locals the least amount possible, sort of like what we do with tech now, that paid them the least amount possible and basically exploited them. And at that time they had a thing called the company store. If you ever heard the song, I Sold My Soul to the Company Store. And boy, the big scam, and somebody had to step in and stop this, was that you got paid in dollars, not real dollars that were only able to be used at the company store, which the company owned, who had paid you the money to begin with. Like, wow, that's just a one-stop exploitation. We have a much more complex system of exploitation now, but yeah. So yeah, they wanted out of there so bad, and I always admire that. And in one generation, they got to the big city, Dayton, Ohio, or the outer boroughs of Dayton, Ohio, and had their classic post-war, numerous kids. And then within a generation, I was the first person in my entire family to go to college. So that happens in 2 generations. I mean, that's insane. I feel all right. I've made it to Hollywood in terms of where I live, not in terms of movies you can go see. But but it's like, so I feel like maybe that was a part of me as well. Of like, all right, well, and and I'm growing up in a. I mean, again, we were poor, but we weren't poor, like dirt poor, like grandma's parents. We're dirt poor people with, a lot of the problems that come with that too, malnutrition and, things like that, and early death. And, but, so I didn't have any of that, but I still felt in my own way. It's funny to look back on it, to be in a place like Dayton or Oxford and be like, I got to get out of here. I mean, what my grandparents came from, they had to get out of there. I was just like, I want to go make movies.
What made them pick Dayton? Was there something specific that drew them there, or was it just kind of Dayton sounds nice?
I mean, I guess they could have picked any place along the way from Kentucky, the hills of Kentucky up to it. But I mean, it's like you see the progress towards a larger city and larger economies as you go further and further north. If you continued north from Dayton, you would get to Cleveland, which is even bigger and has a bigger economy. And if you continue north of there, you get to Chicago or New York, and then the economy gets bigger and bigger. So, I mean, I think they got drawn from work mostly. There was a GM plant in Dayton, which ultimately ended up being my grandpa's career, and he supervised the change from people putting one part on with a hand. There was no factory type thing. There were no machines. There were no robots. There were no, I guess there were belts that would move one thing and you move it you put one part on, pass it to the next guy or whatever. They had machined up. But, by the time he retired, it was, the big arms moving things and doing all this stuff. And he watched all that happen,
Man, yeah, I remember when I was growing up, GM was huge. Like it was a real big deal in Dayton. Sadly, it's gone away, but
yeah.
It was a big deal, and a lot of people worked there that you would just run into.
It enabled my whole family. I mean, my whole family worked there, and it just gave them this great quality of life because there was, the wages were good, the overtime was good, the retirement was good, and and it was a time of like the boom economy too. So yeah, no, it really enabled the entire family to just have a really good lower middle class life, which was huge compared to where we came from,
Yeah. Now, as far as Dayton's concerned, what specific area did you come from?
So I was born in Dayton, and then lived in Dayton for a few years, and then moved to Vandalia, Ohio, for kindergarten and first grade. And then a crazy thing happened. I moved very close to where you are from, which not a lot of people are from, which is Arcanum, Ohio. We moved to Lewisburg, Ohio, and it's you look back on it and it's sort of a step back because we were in Vandalia, which is an outer borough of Dayton, a lot bigger schools, bigger things, and we moved to a one-room schoolhouse in Lewisburg, Ohio.
Wow.
Like the old one-room schoolhouse where they would teach, kindergarten through whatever, 5th grade or whatever in one room, and so I had this house with this giant room and, like a pass through to the kitchen because that's how they served the meals and everything, and offices upstairs, it was kind of laid out like a schoolhouse. But I was in the midst of hundreds of acres of woods, which is where my grandparents grew up, but I hadn't seen any of that yet. And so, my parents feel a little bad for that because it's like, it's a step backwards in terms of possibilities in education. But oh my God, I mean, all my friends and going out in the woods with BB guns and, and just all that. I mean, I would come home. I was such a bad student because I wanted to do 2 things: run in the woods and watch movies. And that was it, because homework, and my parents were very permissive. Some would say it's bad parenting that you usually have to make your kid get home from school, sit down, get your homework done. I mean, that's how all my cousins and everything were. I went over to their house and I was like, oh, we're sitting down and doing our homework. Okay. We'll do, and then you earn your time on the weekends or whatever to go out and play or that sort of thing. So, but instead I would come home, I would drop my backpack, grab my BB gun and head out to the woods. And then, and it was the time of like, all right, be back by sundown, that sort of thing. And just running in the woods and the creek and, and out in nature. And then you would meet friends. That was the thing. I didn't know the modern convention of having a neighbor. for many years. We did have one neighbor, but other than that, it became increasingly spread out. But, my second grade best friend, he was a 45-minute walk through the woods, and you would walk, and then you would climb the fence and go through the cow pasture and climb another fence, and there you were at Jeff's house, and then we'd go, shoot BB guns in the backyard. It was like, all right, the sun's starting to go down. Got to walk 45 minutes through cow pastures and woods and cornfields back to my house. But boy, what a way to grow up. I look back on it. It was great fondness. It was just a miraculous place to grow up,
Yeah, I loved it as a teenager, and especially when I got my license, and then it's me and my friends piled in the car, driving around the country block, just hanging out, causing trouble and stuff,
Definitely causing trouble. Yeah, exactly. And then a friend of ours was the first to get his license, and then it started becoming my parents started seeing the sort of trouble that a bunch of hillbillies can get into, in once you start having access to go to other people's cornfields, or go into town and doing the sort of stuff you do in the woods in the middle of town. So it got a little crazy, and that's my parents decided, all right, let's kind of move a little closer back to the city.
How old were you when you were living in Lewisburg?
This would be second grade through freshman year.
Oh, that's quite a while then.
That's quite a while. Yeah, no, that's definitely my formative life, and my obsession with movies and everything. That all comes from there. And it was a lot. But boy, it was a great house. It was just a cool. I have dreams of going back and buying that place and redoing it or something, because it ain't ever going to fall down. It is just a solid brick. But with that comes other problems, because when it comes to the winter, there's literally no insulation on the house, and we had to line the house with hay bales to keep just the draft in the bottom part, going down into the basement and stuff like that. Like, to just hold that out, we had to, every winter we would have a farmer come and drop off hay bales, and they would line the entire outside of the house. And then you had to put all the plastic on the windows and everything. I mean, you had to barricade in it was a cabin with slats, and here comes the snow. That was, I'd wake up and there would be ice on my goldfish bowl. I remember that. Sometimes I'm like, hey, it's getting cold in this room at night, but yeah.
Yeah, well, off the air, you'll have to give me the address. I'll run out there and take a picture of the house for you.
Yeah, tell me. Whenever I go back there, I went back for a class reunion. I went back, and sometimes I'll just take the long route. Like if I go, because my parents still live in Kentucky, my parents have separated, so they're in Dayton and Kentucky. So I make the trip, but you could take the highway to Dayton, or you could take some of the classic country roads that I remember from when I was a kid. And so I've passed by the old place a few times. So I'll give you the address though, because it's a interesting layout, and you could see all the woods that we had around us. And then in college, I met someone else from Arcanum, and then we related because we're like, that creek behind the thing or whatever. And she's like, oh, I used to play in that creek. I was like, wow, that's just a crazy connection, much like the fact that you're from Arcanum, which is where our veterinarian was.
Well, I don't know if it would matter or not, but if I almost dropped his name, I'll say it, man. It's a great plug as far as I'm concerned. Dr. Farce was our veterinarian from Arcanum.
I'll have to find out if that's the name. I can't remember. I remember it having a name of the place and not his name, but yeah.
He was great. My dog passed about 5 years ago or so, and he was just absolutely great about it. That same had all my animals went to Arcanum Vet, and
that's our place. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was that tornado went through there in 92 or 94 or something.
Oh, okay.
A little court. Did it? I'm not sure if it went through much of Lewisburg or not. I don't think so.
Yeah. No, we were gone by then. That's because I graduated in 91 from Talawanda High School in Oxford, Ohio.
Okay, so instead of moving back toward Dayton, you moved a little bit further away toward Oxford.
Yeah, we went to, and the idea was, and boy, my parents were clever, because, it's an interesting story, that I got in some trouble. I was starting to, I was getting into that time where you could get in a little more trouble. You were a little bigger. There were access to cars and stuff like that. So I started getting in trouble in school, and I was always like the smart ass, and I was always like the kid who acted out. But what I used to do was turn C pluses into B's because I was at least active in the class and talking in the class, and a lot of people weren't. And so I did get a lot of participation, but then that participation quickly turned to participation that they weren't that interested in. But again, this is like the young comedian in me. I was discovering stand-up, I was discovering movies and acting. So when my parents go to visit the principal, who had never had a problem with me for years and years and years and years, and he's starting to be like, I think this, and this is the principal of this school, and he goes, I think this school's a bad influence on your son. And they ended up talking and realized that my stepdad and my principal went to the same college and graduated the same year, I believe. And when he asked my stepdad, he's like, well, what do you want for your son? He was like, well, I'd like him to go to Miami of Ohio. And he's like, I don't know if that's going to happen. Even if he gets straight A's for the rest of his time, this school doesn't have enough of a pedigree. He's like, I think you need to, and what they conspired to do, my principal and my parents, was get me into the school system in Oxford, Ohio. And as long as you were there for 3 years, there was an agreement that you could graduate after 3 years in that school. There was an agreement that the university would let any student from Talawanda into that college. And so that was going to be my only chance to go to that college. And so I went and, overperformed comparative to Lewisburg, underperformed comparative to the rest of the class, but I still got into college. And then I had to really put the pedal to the metal, because then they'll let you in. But if you screw up, they can kick you right out. So, but at that point, I'm studying film, I'm studying video. I'm actually doing stuff that I want. And there's a big difference between grade school and college, because you're like, and suddenly you're meeting friends that can quote Monty Python. Like that idea was brand new, and suddenly you're meeting people that can quote all of Scorsese's films. And, you're like, okay, I'm in a very different place now. And then I discovered improv and forgot all about film for a while.
I'm going to ask you about what kinds of movies you were into at this point in time.
Yeah.
But I do need to ask you about this now. Out there near Oxford, do you ever remember hearing about some old legend where there were these 3 hills and the single motorcycle?
Phantom motorcycle, right?
Yeah. The curve where the girl died in the car crash, and then you would park there and flash your headlights in a single beam with... Did you ever try that?
Not a kid growing up in that town didn't go do that. In fact, I did that. This is funny. Now you're causing a flashback here, because I completely forgot about this. And the friends, my crew of friends who got their driver's license, I had got mine, and so. But one of the guys that I went and did that with is now the play-by-play guy on radio for the Washington Capitals. Because I just had a flashback. I'm like, oh, I did that with JT Walton. But yeah, we all piled into the car, like, let's go do it. And it turns out it is, the legend was someone was coming down the hill on a motorcycle, and there is a dead end curve at the end of that. You're coming this way, and it just curved sharply. And the idea was the guy didn't see that. There was no reflectors at that time, or whatever this guy supposedly happened. I'm sure this part is true. And just barreled through that fence into the woods, into a tree, and died. I'm sure that part is true. But what it is, it's an optical illusion that there are those 3 hills. So a car from very far away looks like it's closer. It looks like it disappears and reappears, but I think it's just cars off in the distance. But you can see cars further off in the distance. I think it's an optical illusion. So we all went there, and you're supposed to honk your car 3 times. There's a house right there who's so annoyed at this, and we honked 3 times, and then all the lights turned on in that farmhouse, and you're like, oh great, they're going to come yell at us. But the more interesting thing about that was, when you hit that corner, if you take a right, the next house down is the scariest Chainsaw Massacre looking house you've ever seen. That was 100 times scarier than this phantom motorcycle, because it was like the 1923 block mansion, like the type of Chainsaw Massacre house in the remake, like that sort of block mansion, which they actually have some in this really old neighborhood near me, and each one of them looks like the Chainsaw Massacre house, but they're in like the middle of the city. But the Chainsaw Massacre house, the entire driveway was lined with garbage bags. They'd never had garbage pickup. The entire yard was taller than me because we had to turn around that driveway to go around. And I was like, I'm actually really scared right now that house. So I wonder whatever happened to that house, because it's a great plot of land, great house, good fixer-upper opportunity. But what must that place have looked like inside? So
right.
Yeah, the Phantom motorcycle. Oh my gosh, yes. Wow, that legend gets around. You guys knew about that too.
Yeah, well, I had no clue, but I hung out with some friends who were from West Manchester and went to National Trail a little bit closer out that way.
National Trail, right. Yes.
Yep. So they made us aware of it one night, and we piled. We were like, dude, we got to try this. So we saw it, and I don't know what we saw, but we saw something. So
yeah, I think it's an optical illusion from the hill and the way and I think also like the way it's shaped in some way. There's a slight curve to it, so that the cars do like you only see one of the headlights. Therefore, they call it the Phantom motorcycle. Something like that. Right. Yeah, I love stuff like that. That would make a great podcast. Is all the local legends like that, and people who did it, people who saw it, people who didn't see it. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I forgot all about that.
But at this time, you're going to college there in Oxford at Miami.
Yeah.
What kind of films were you like? What were your favorite movies to watch on repeat, or your rainy day movie?
Well, I'll tell you, this is my favorite story of pre-college, so I go to high school. It's a much fancier high school, and what's so funny about that is it's a much nicer high school. It's in a college town. All the kids are like, a lot of them are professors' students, so that was just a really great to have. I miss my friends from the other school, but I forgot about it quickly because I make friends pretty quick. I mean, you could tell I'm a pretty social guy, but so what the summer, I was way into, I'm a Spielberg and Lucas guy, obviously. And I don't just mean Star Wars Lucas. I mean, I know THX 113. I've seen that movie, 50 times. It's a masterpiece. If I told you Stanley Kubrick made that movie, you would have very few arguments while watching. So yeah, Spielberg, Lucas, the real pop stuff. Now, back in Lewisburg, when we first got our VCR, it was all horror. It was all slasher horror. Me and my friends that I got rowdy with and caused me to end up in the principal's office, we were the Fangoria magazine kids. We were the Tom Savini's, VHS, learn how to do blood effects. We had a Just Say No program thing that we had to do, where everybody had to do a story about, a cautionary tale about why not to do drugs. And me and my friends all got together and built a prison, this sort of prison thing in my friend's barn in Lewisburg. I decided to make a blood pack, so when the guy gets all messed up on PCP, our cautionary tale was about PCP. You could tell we were watching movies. A lot of movies, like, not a lot of PCP going around. I didn't see any marijuana even. Mostly those guys knew how to drink. The people that were already experimenting with anything, it was booze. But I didn't see any drugs. I'm sure somebody was doing drugs, but it wasn't PCP. But anyway, so the guy does PCP, and he gets this incredible strength, because this is what we heard. You turn into the Hulk when you're on PCP, and he bursts out of the jail, and we're forced to shoot him. And I had the gun, I had the cap gun, and I had the blood pack and all that stuff. So that we were majorly into Friday the 13th, Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We had to do a journal thing for one of my schools, and most people are just journaling what they're journaling. And I asked the teacher, I'm like, can I just write a story? And she's like, yeah. And so I wrote this serialized story about, Michael Myers meets Jason, meets Chainsaw Massacre, meets Freddy. And I just started doing this in increments, and you had to read your journal in front of the class each week. And so serialized over the course of 8 weeks, I think, I did installments of each, in part 1, Freddy meets Jason, and in part 2, Jason meets Michael Myers, and part 3, they all go to the Chainsaw Massacre house. Anyway, long story short. But in high school, it became a huge Tim Burton. Oh my gosh. I discovered Tim Burton because I couldn't figure out what filmmakers did, and I wanted to know really badly, because George Lucas didn't direct Empire Strikes Back, but it feels very Star Wars to me. And George Lucas didn't direct Raiders of the Lost Ark, but he was involved somehow. Like, that's how he started figuring out, like, well, wait a second. Well, then what does Spielberg do? Like, I guess I can see the through line between this Spielberg movie and that Spielberg movie. But I was looking for a new filmmaker so I could go, okay, I want someone that I don't know who they are just yet. And I want to see their progress. Well, the one... And I'm a huge live action superhero fan. I grew up watching Christopher Reeve, and you booked out the day, like the double feature of the Incredible Hulk and Wonder Woman TV show on Saturday night. You know, I'd be looking at the watch at like 5 o'clock. I'm like, all right, news, and then we got to watch Hee Haw, then we got to watch that, but then and we got Shot on Ah, but then it's time for the Hulk and then Wonder Woman, or vice versa, I think. So superhero movie. So when they started making a Batman movie, which I had been rumored for years. As soon as Christopher Reeve's Superman came out, my stepdad told me, he's like, oh no, they're making a Batman movie. I'm like, and it's just in my head, I'm like, because the Batman TV show I was also in love with the advent of cable, Superman, there was a live action Superman that I could watch a lot. Anyway, so I said, and they said, Tim Burton's directing this. And I was like, the Pee-wee's Big Adventure guy? Like, how does that even happen? Okay, now I'm going to figure out what a director does. Because what happens with the Pee-wee's Big Adventure guy makes Batman? Well, in between that came out Beetlejuice. And I was like, I went to Beetlejuice going, all right, today's the day I find out what directors do. And I did. I was like, oh, I recognized like the Large Marge, weird claymation stuff that would go in. You see that all over Beetlejuice. And then, so anyway, so I became a huge Tim Burton head. And then I'd always loved James Cameron because the 1-2 punch of Terminator and then Aliens. You're like, who is this god? And they programmed at that time in the theaters an Aliens The Fly double feature. And you get one ticket to go to both. And so, you're watching The Fly, and this is already blowing my head because I'm already into horror and stuff like that. But I'm also like really into Terminator. Like, I would never stop watching Terminator over and over and over. That movie was just rock and roll for movie fans, and different than Spielberg and Lucas. It had progressed. Film had progressed in my estimation. But boy, that second feature, you're all excited from The Fly. You're like, wow, that was crazy and gross and all the good stuff, at that time. Boy, then you're just unprepared for Aliens, which I had not seen Alien yet because Alien kids couldn't see. But Aliens, I was now old enough, but we didn't have a VCR yet. Or maybe we were getting a VCR that year. I think we had just gotten a VCR, but I hadn't seen Alien yet. And I knew I couldn't see Alien. I knew I couldn't see Jaws for a long time. And those were two I was just like, I got it. When I get old enough, those are the movies I'm going to see. And you just imagine what Jaws is, Finally, they showed it on TV. And that was one where I enforced on staying up late tonight. You don't tell me to go to bed tonight. Jaws is on tonight. And my favorite thing, every time I watch the end of Jaws, because, they wanted to... They were picking me up at my dad's house. They wanted to go home, but I was like, no. I'm watching Jaws. And finally, that shark explodes at the end, and everybody wants to go to bed and leave, and they're humoring me, going, this kid really loves Jaws. He's really got to see Jaws. And when that shark explodes at the end, every time I see that shark explode, I can hear my dad go, well, that's what you were waiting for. And then everybody up, out of the house. But on my path to college, I had this dream of being a filmmaker. I had this dream of writing movies or acting in movies, anything in the form. But as I approached college, and college was an actual reality, and it wasn't a film school. There was a video school there, but there was also an acting program, and I am trying to figure out what to do. And I'm lowballing it. They did like a career preference type thing in high school, and it said I should work in radio. And I was like, okay, that's much more realistic. Guys like me graduating from this high school, we don't go make movies. People don't do that. There was no indie film that I knew of at that time. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to go into radio. I'm going to lowball it. I can be a radio producer, and let's forget these big lofty dreams that are impossible and blah, blah, blah. And then that summer between senior year and college, I went to go see Terminator 2, the sequel to one of my favorite movies of all time, after Aliens, after The Abyss. And I'm like, it's just like the filmmaking craft in that thing. I mean, not to mention all the really mind-blowing stuff, but just like the solid story and how that movie is just so relentless. He does all the things we love from the other movies plus more, and advancing the form. And it's one of the few times I can remember leaving a movie and just my jaws just dropped. I'm just speechless. My friends are all in the car joking, oh, wasn't that a fun time stuff? I'm like, I think I'm a changed man. I'm absolutely going to go be a filmmaker. I'm going to college for film. So I turned a video degree into a film degree by taking, I minored in film studies. So I was like, part of it is you got to study every movie. And so I took every film class, studying German film, Russian film, every single type of film. And then I took photography because I realized I wasn't getting a photography education in video. So I made my own film program.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
And then tried to make a bunch of little Terminator movies in the course of that.
Hell yeah. See, one thing struck me as kind of funny is, how old were you when you saw Jaws? You were in your late teens.
No. This would be because so that comes out in 75. That is going to end up on TV. I'm going to say something more like 79. No, I think I'm like 8 or 9, maybe 10. But my parents let me see some movies like that early on than other kids got to see. You know, I got to see The Jerk in theaters when I was a kid, and that was, although you kind of wonder what was that R-rated for. They say shithead, like, all right, I can handle shithead. Like my mom just called dinner a shithead when it got burnt. You know, I'm like, I hear that word. You know.
Yeah, my folks let me watch Jaws when I was 5. And
oh, wow.
Scared the shit out. Like, I loved it, but that's why I don't go into the ocean.
Yeah.
And I mean, it scared the hell out of me, dude, as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, no amount of, I live here in California. I've been in the ocean 4 times. And no amount of in your head saying, well, statistically speaking, you have a greater chance of being bitten by a pig than a shark. It doesn't matter. You go out in that water and you're like, anything could be out here right now. Anything. Yeah. And then, so then you just make sure there's like 3 levels of people. You're like, if the shark comes in, it's going to get that guy, then it's going to get that guy, then it's going to get that guy, and I'll be in here. That's okay. I can handle the water just up to my tummy. I don't have to go out there and swim.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny you talk about like that as far as like the layers and stuff, because I grew up, I was born in Ohio, and then about 18 months old, we moved to Texas.
Oh, wow.
So until I was about 5 or 6. And so we went to Galveston a lot, in the beach down there on the Gulf. And
oh, okay, right.
I remember doing that same thing, like 6, 7 years old. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to let them go a little bit further out there, and I'll just kind of hang out up here. But yeah. That scarred me.
Yeah, you don't have to be the fastest. You just have to be the least slow, right? Give me a head start back to the beach when things start turning red out there. The Alex Kittners out there.
Now, do you recall the first movie that you saw in a movie theater?
You know, I mean, Star Wars just overshadows so many things because I got to see that in the theater 6 times. Might be including a re-release. I think I saw it 4 times, and then it was re-released twice before Empire. So I think I saw that 6 times in the theater before Empire. I mean, it was re-released after Empire too. So I think ultimately in the theaters, I did see it 8 times over the course of its runs. So that overshadows everything else. I mean, I've been told stories from my aunt that it was like Pinocchio or something, but I'm like, that just doesn't stick, man, because I saw Star Wars between 6 and 8 times in the theater, and then you leave, unlike every other movie, you leave that theater and you continue the adventure with action figures. The advent of that just overshadows everything. So I can remember no other movies before Star Wars, even though I'm sure I saw something. But expanding past Star Wars became a thrill. You know, you start seeing Superman the movie, and the influence of Star Wars on other movies. You started getting nothing but Star Wars. You started getting Krull and all this stuff in Star Trek 2 and all this stuff that's just like the mind blowing for kids. And you're like, God, I can see other types of Star Wars every week almost now. E.T. and all that stuff. So yeah, but that all stems from Star Wars. Definitely Star Wars. I mean, I do have memories of being in a theater and watching Star Wars for the second time. I don't think I remember actually, I do remember the first one, but I start developing more and more memories of reliving those moments that I was excited for. Oh, here comes the part where this. Oh, here comes the part where this, and that was good stuff. That was good stuff, man. That's formative.
Yeah. I saw Star Wars Return of the Jedi. Is the
Mm-hmm.
one I was old enough
Oh.
when it came out. I was born and went to see that, and I remember that like it was yesterday. I remember everything. The incline back. I don't know if it was this way up here, but down in Texas, the theaters. There was one aisle that went right down the middle of the theater, and it was on
Mm-hmm.
kind of a steep incline. So I remember I was used to run down it because I could get momentum and have to sit in the front. And my brothers didn't want to sit with me and mom. I remember everything about that, dude.
Oh man, I mean, and as we progress past the very first time I saw Star Wars, the memories I can go back mentally and sit in that theater right now. The Dayton Mall, Salem Mall, the Salem Mall cinema was a constant because you could go in one entrance of the Salem Mall. The movie theater was right there. Just a little bit down the way was an arcade, and so you could get there early. And Dad, would give me $5 in quarters in the arcade, and you're just like, "This is a paradise of a day." Go to the comic book store afterwards, and that was a Sunday with Dad. But the Salem Mall, I mean, I can picture myself sitting there watching Star Wars right now, and I know absolutely if you put me in that same theater right now, because that's where that was the first one I saw. First movie I ever saw on opening day was Return of the Jedi, and I had seen no trailers. I had seen some footage of that at the end of Entertainment Tonight, and I've heard Ken Knapsack talk about this too. That footage, every shot of that, I could piece together that trailer at the end of Empire Strikes Back from seeing it once. When I watched Return of the Jedi, I'm like, that shot, because that's it. I knew there was another Star Wars movie coming out, which was an exciting development. I didn't know they were going to make another one of these to begin with. And when Empire Strikes Back came out, that was like shocking. I was like, they made another one of these? Like, oh my God, and I can picture standing in line for Empire on the opening, maybe not the opening weekend. I think we waited at that time, but Return of the Jedi, my parents went and got tickets for opening day, and we're standing there in a packed lobby with that footage running through my head of the tree exploding on Endor, of the gate opening and Luke grabbing in the Rancor pit and shaking it. I'm just like, where is he? What is that? Why is that tree exploding? Like, oh my God. And a shot of all the ships and, for the Battle of Endor. And, just sitting there waiting for that movie to start, it's the most incredible anticipation. And, and it just builds up and builds up and builds up. It's all day. I mean, it was, all week and all day that day. I mean, you talk about my anticipation of like, is news over because Wonder Woman's on at 7? A whole week of just like waiting for Return of the Jedi, the culmination of this thing that I just love so much and just made me who I am. I could go into that theater and pick the exact seat I was sitting in when that whole thing unfolded on screen. And I mean, there's Darth Vader, there's Jabba the Hutt, there's Han Solo. I mean, it just, all the way up to like Luke flipping on that thing on the skiff. It's just like, it's the thrill of a lifetime. It's just like, it's stick it into my veins, that Star Wars thrill. And I've carried that thrill forever. People are like, Phantom Menace isn't very good. I'm like, no, I'm that same kid from Jedi. Every time I see one of these, like, you can't, that feeling is in that movie. Trust me.
Did you ever go to the Neon movie theaters?
I did. Actually, I had a great time at my roommate from Greenville, Ohio. When my senior year of college, is this my senior? Yeah, senior year of college. We got these punch cards for the Neon movies, and every Saturday morning they would show a Hitchcock movie. And so we ended up seeing through the course of that year in college, that was just our Sunday thing. A bunch of us pile into the car and go watch a Hitchcock movie. And there were so many Hitchcock movies I hadn't seen. And, I'm in film school. Well, I'm in my own version of film school at the time. And, they come up and some classes will show a Hitchcock for this reason or that reason. But I still had been, the guy made 60 movies or something, or 40 some movies. So it was so great. Every Saturday you would study a new Hitchcock movie, and then you would go and read up on that movie and how it was made and all that stuff. And that just happened every weekend at the Neon movies. But still, when I go back and visit my my stepmom and sister, we go and do a day at the Neon movies as well. I assume it's still open, right?
I believe it is. My brother and my nephew went a couple of years ago at least. So, yeah.
And also, the other great thing that happened is in mid-college, here comes the independent film scene. It's almost like life waited for me to get to an age where I could appreciate music and truly appreciate film to introduce the grunge, the alternative music movement. And if you know anything about Oxford, Ohio, 97X, the future of rock and roll, was one of the few large wattage college rock stations in the country. I think there were like 5 of them. And the tower for 97X was next to the house I went to high school in. So you got it through everything. But and then here comes independent film. I mean, I have just clocked in as a college student who is absolutely going to make movies, absolutely study movies, and here comes independent film for your consideration. So the Neon Movies was also when we wouldn't go see a Hitchcock movie. Sometimes we would stay and watch another movie there because there were all these great independent films coming out at that time. And where you're going to see The Piano, or where you're going to see some of these movies. And the rumor mill, those movies weren't playing in Oxford, Ohio, but the college students were talking about those. Like, where are you going to see El Mariachi? It's not going to be at the Princess Theaters. You got to go down to the Neon.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember seeing the one that I remember seeing there's Lost Highway.
Right.
That's another one where it's like, dude, where are we going to watch it? And my brother's like, yo, it's at Neon.
Yeah, you got to go to the Neon. Yeah, I'd like a Neon Movies T-shirt. The next time I'm there, I'm going to get a Neon. That'd be a great thing to wear, like if it was a Schmoedown or whatever. Like, the fact that I wore a Dayton Dragons hat, which I just wore because it had a D, which I thought for Dan Merle, and I wanted to dress with a hat like Dan Merle to try and dress like my competitors.
Instantly, I've been to a few Dragons games over the years, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, yes, there we go. I know. Before we move off from Neon Movie, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
At that time, were they doing Rocky Horror Picture Show on Friday nights?
They were. And I never went and did the Rocky Horror thing, but boy, it's so lucky that my sister was able to go do that all through her high school. That was like such a big deal, and that just totally formed her personality. And knowing that you can be a freak, you could be look at all these people dressed up like this thing to celebrate this weird movie that almost nobody knows about. That was really cool. She did Rocky Horror a lot there, and very proudly as a Rocky Horror fan, I was able to take her to The Room here in LA when she visited when I first moved here before anybody had heard of it, which was cool.
Yeah, a lot of memories there with friends hanging out in the Oregon District at coffee shops.
Oh, right.
War would start and. Just the memories, man. It was such a good time.
Yeah, that is a really wonderful slice of Ohio, is the Oregon District there, because you could go and there was a coffee shop or tchotchke shops or head shops that you could just wander the little brick street there, and then if you had an hour before your movie, and then just walk to the Neon. It's right around the corner, pretty much.
Yeah. And speaking of some of places around Dayton, I have to ask because you're from there. So I've got some places that I've been to and I'm familiar with, and some questions. Okay, Marion's Pizza.
Yes.
So good, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. Yes, Marion's was the best. Now Marion's was that classic place that after a Little League game, I never played sports, but I would go to my cousin's Little League games or soccer games, and that was the classic after soccer place to go. Man, that Marion's Pizza is still the greatest. It's in it. I mean, they haven't changed the recipe in years. I had it a couple years ago. Marion's Pizza in Inglewood was the one I remember. Right down the street, because sometimes you would go to a movie as well. That's where I saw Superman 2, Arthur, Ordinary People, that little theater there. And Marion's Pizza was in that little plaza there. Oh my gosh. And that's also that McDonald's in that plaza. Yeah. One time after a movie, my dad was bringing me back, and Chuck Norris was doing a thing at the Hara Arena, a presentation, a demonstration with other martial arts students and stuff like that. And my dad looked a lot like Chuck Norris at the time. And there were 3 teenage girls that were kept looking. And kept looking. We're just sitting there eating our McDonald's, kept looking. And finally one comes over and goes, "Are you Chuck Norris?" And I guess they weren't WKRP fans because he looked a lot more like Howard Hessman. But, and you couldn't convince these girls my dad wasn't Chuck Norris. That's a funny story from that Inglewood McDonald's.
Yeah, I know exactly where you are. I Diamond Mill at least once a week on my way to Miamisburg. So
where's that?
Diamond Mill there.
Diamond Mill, yes.
I take that all the way down south of Dayton. So
I've spent many years of my life on Diamond Mill Road, and I have a relative that has always since my birth lived on Diamond Mill Road. I know Diamond Mill quite well.
Too many stop signs, and the speed limit's not fast enough, and they hide all the speed limit signs with trees and plants. It's terrible.
Yeah, right.
I wanted to make a video on that since I was in high school, driving down that road and showing how. Anyway, I'm not going to...
Yeah. Well, your audience, I think we're boring them with the amount of stop signs on Diamond Mill Road, although it is great that we both have a lot of similar reference points.
It's terrible. But you did bring up Hara Arena. That was the next place on my list. Is I saw a bunch of concerts there, a lot of concerts. Had season tickets to the Dayton Bombers hockey team with my dad.
Oh, the Bombers.
Do you have any memories from any events at Hara Arena? Do you ever do anything like that?
Yes, WWF. I saw the WWF and boy, what a miracle that as Star Wars ended, like suddenly there was WWF, G.I. Joe, Transformers. It's what a time, just what a time for me and my friends who were into all this stuff. But yeah, my parents got tickets to WWF and we went and watched the WWF at Hara Arena. That's my big memory there. I think we were there for other things too, but they're not coming to mind right now. My big first concert was at University of Dayton. That was Def Leppard in their Hysteria tour. Yeah, that was a big moment. But WWF, Ricky Steamboat, who else? Corporal Kirshner, George the Animal Steel, Mr. Fuji. And it's so funny. You had this little instant camera, not an instant camera, but whatever, the little block camera with a cube that you put on top of it. So we have all these photos of like as they would pass and stuff of like Corporal Kirshner and I loved Corporal Kirshner. He was like the Rambo wrestler of the time. Ricky Steamboat and you try and take pictures of the action by sticking your camera out in the aisle and trying to get a shot. You're like 80 feet away from the, but we were on the floor, it was cool. It wasn't a broadcast one, but yeah, WWF and Hara Arena. That's right in there with slasher movies and Fangoria. I mean, the magazines were Ninja Magazine, WWF Magazine, and Fangoria. Oh my gosh. I mean, that just makes my heart grow 3 sizes mentioning those 3 particular periodicals.
And there's one more location and thing specifically about this location I want to ask you about. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is Dayton, Fairfield, whatever you call it. But I want to ask your opinion. What do you think about the rumors that they, at least at some point in time, housed the wreckage and all of that from Roswell in one of the hangars there at Wright-Pat? Did you ever hear that as you were growing up?
I heard that more via, I believe there's a conflagration of 2 rumors. One is that the story from the movie Super 8 has a connection to Oxford, Ohio, that a train wrecked, a train derailed at one point, and that was coming from Area 50, well, it was coming from Nevada. I mean, who knows what telephone game turns this into, but supposedly that derailed outside of Oxford, Ohio. And supposedly that had some, government secrets or whatever because of its origination in Nevada. I think that's how they get to the rumor that some of that was stored at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. But no, that was nothing we ever talked about. I put that together much later around like, when Super 8 came out, that I heard that had the origin. Well, I think that's what it was. It was headed for Wright-Patterson Air Force Base from Nevada, right?
I'm not sure. I never heard anything about how it had gotten there, but
yeah.
When I was a kid and a teenager, I just remember there for maybe about 6 months, it was just a big deal around Dayton and around our area because someone was trying on the local news trying to get records released to prove it. Mm-hmm. I was wondering if you guys heard the same kind of rumors as you were a kid too.
No, not as a kid. I mean, my only experience with Wright-Patterson is that was a classic school trip place to go was Wright-Pat or COSI, the Columbus.
It's so great.
Something.
Yep. But now, am I correct here that did you move from Oxford to Cincinnati?
No, I've just always claimed that I'm. If it depending upon who I'm talking to, I'm talking to someone from Dayton. I'm from Dayton. If I talk to someone from Cincinnati, I can say I'm from Cincinnati because that was closer. We started getting Cincinnati TV when we lived in Oxford. You know, we were closer to Cincinnati than Dayton. We could never get any Cincinnati stations when we lived in Lewisburg. Right. So we started watching the nightly news with Cincinnati, Jerry Springer, and George Clooney's dad. So we started being, and we started getting, you know, like 700 WLW, which I guess you could get in Dayton. I guess we listened to that in Dayton too, but it became more of a fixture. I started paying more attention to baseball in general, but the Reds. So yeah, we definitely are adopted of Cincinnati, and we would go there for more things than Dayton at that point. So I didn't live in Cincinnati. I moved from Oxford to Chicago.
But you're familiar with, I know exactly what you mean. I listen to 700 every day of my life, and I have since I was a teenager.
Yeah, how is it now? Is Mike McConnell still on? I always liked Mike McConnell.
Yes, he had moved to Chicago for about 3 or 4 years, but came back.
He retired, right?
What's that?
He retired. He didn't go on radio in Chicago. I didn't know that. He went to Chicago.
He went to do radio in Chicago and then came back. Who was it that did the early morning and did
Jim Scott?
Was it Jim Scott?
Well, years ago. I mean, decades ago. It was Jim Scott for a long time. Right?
Early morning slot now.
Well, if you get early enough, it's Truck and Bozo. But
yeah, he's Truck and Bozo. Well, it's not. I can't remember who's on the Truck and Bozo because he retired, and I was like, oh man, I don't want to listen anymore. But Willie Cunningham's still rocking it on there.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I heard the other day, and I thought about you because I was wondering if you had heard this, but the other day they play a clip for a roofing company that Willie promotes, and they play and I guess it's a legit 911 call that Willie had to make. He had gotten stuck on his roof, the ladder fell.
Oh my God!
You know, it's like, hello, 911, and he's like, yeah, I'm stuck on my roof, I can't get down, and they ask his name. He says, Bill Cunningham. And the lady goes, is this Willie? And he's like,
that's great. Well, yeah, I mean, that was my love of talk radio. You know, when we moved closer to Cincinnati, 700 became more of a fixture. I mean, that lineup, you couldn't beat it. I would just turn it on. Jim Scott he was the master of dropping. I mean, he must have advertised 800 products in an hour, and you wouldn't even know it. Like he would go, and the weather's this, and when your weather's getting rough, you know, you're like, how does he do this? How does he do this? Like a master of advertising stuff. And then you would Mike McConnell midday, and then you would get Gary Burbank,
yes.
which was, I mean, where did the out and out nothing but sketches comedy show go in radio? Oh my God! I mean, it was like a morning show in the afternoons.
Yeah.
And then
Gnarly was one of his characters.
Gilbert Gnarly, Gnarly. He spells his name every time. And he would make prank calls, super innocent prank calls. You know, like Gilbert Gnarly would call and say that he had just gotten something. A solar powered calculator. I remember this because for one Christmas they sold all the cassettes of Gilbert Gnarly and Earl Pitts, which was his hillbilly character. Yeah. Redneck character. I mean, it's so funny. Like that was a parody, and he knew it was a parody. And like, I feel like you could hear that guy now being a serious conservative or something. You're like, am I listening to Earl Pitts? Because this used to be a joke, and I don't know if this guy knows he's being a parody of a character. But yeah, definitely the proud Ohioan, you know, calling everybody sissies and that sort of stuff. And then it was, I got a great story for you. Because the sports talk, if the Reds weren't on, it was Bob Trumpy when I was a kid, and great sports talk. That guy was one of the best sports talk people. I think he left to actually go do national sports. And then after him was Bill Cunningham. You could listen to that all day long. Yeah, and you're like, well, I'm loving Mike McConnell. I can't wait for this. Yeah, that was really kind of magical. And I feel like my love, and I had a radio show in Chicago. I've had various, tons of podcasts here. My love of radio and that sort of entertaining type of talk radio, like, comes from there. Like, I would almost feel like I'm born to like run a radio station or something because talking about it with you right now. But let me get to a funny story about Bob Trumpy. Bob Trumpy was very hard on Cincinnati legend and hero to us all, Eric Davis. Eric Davis was MVP in the 1990 World Series, but before that, he would take crap from all of these white talk show hosts who, even at that time, you're like, I think this guy's being a little racist about Eric Davis. And he just took crap from people all the time, and yet he was the Jose Canseco of Cincinnati. It's like, everybody shut the up, but us kids who we had the baseball cards and everything, and an Eric Davis rookie card, and then you would root for all the baseball cards to do good that season. You're like, ooh, I want this baseball card to do good. So Eric Davis was just our hero. Loved Eric Davis, and had a poster of multiple posters of him, Eric the Red. So, but Bob Trumpy was always very difficult on him, and that always upset me. And I stopped listening to him because he wouldn't stop being, the guy got an injury. Like, this is the sports talk conversation to this day of like, oh, did you hurt your pinky nail? It's like, no, they're playing an elite sport, you idiot. You're sitting behind a microphone. Like, let me guess, you're not too sore to do the show today, fat white guy behind the microphone. So, cut to, I go to Chicago. I take my love of improv from Miami University. I go join the Second City. I'm never a major part of that, but I meet a lot of my comedy friends. We come out to LA for some meetings every once in a while, and a couple of my sketch comedy troupe were really good at social media before social media, of getting people out to a party and sort of thing. So we've got a lot of friends that had moved from Chicago to Los Angeles. And it's, so this weekend we go to a couple meetings, we come into town, we do a show at the old Second City space, which is at the Improv. And then we get our friends together, and Monday Night Football is Chicago Bears. All of our Chicago comedian friends who have moved out here and are now doing stuff for Mad TV and things like that, we get a whole party together, and I don't know who booked it, who found it, but Justin Kaufman, the great Justin Kaufman of the comedy troupe Schadenfreude, my comedy troupe, organized this cool club that had an upstairs with this like long hallway, all glass looking down onto a dance floor and the rest of the bar, and a big TV up. And with all these little rows of chairs, for our 12, 15 people that from Chicago who had moved here. So we're watching the Bears and everything like that. Meanwhile, the bottom of the bar has been booked by Hennessy with a DJ and cool. Everybody's dressed up down there. All these people just amazing. Hennessy, African-American crowd down there, but playing the best music. Every time you go to the bathroom or something, you'd have to like work your way onto the dance floor just a little bit, because it's like great DJ, great Hennessy party going on down there. I believe it was Hennessy. And we're standing there, we're watching the Chicago Bears, and and Justin, eagle eye, I can't recognize a celebrity that saved my life. I realized one time a friend of mine gave me like a coupon for a special gym over in West Hollywood, and I was like, oh, let me go to a fancy gym. I had a terrible, gross gym, and I went in there, and I was in the locker room with Sam Rockwell for 10 minutes, and only realized when he got up to leave. I was like, that was Sam Rockwell. Anyway, so I can't recognize this a celebrity to save my life. And Justin looks down the dance floor and he goes, "That's Eric Davis." And I was like, "What?" And I was like, down full powder blue, full jumpsuit, expensive looking jumpsuit, powder blue, dancing his butt off on the floor. And I'm like, he goes, "That's Eric Davis." And I was like, "Get the hell out of here." And he goes, "Come on, we got to go meet Eric Davis." He knew my history with Eric Davis. So we run down. I wish I could give you this photo. I got the photo somewhere. We run down, and as I get closer, it is Eric Davis. Justin was right. And Justin immediately goes, hey, my friend here is from Cincinnati. He's a lifelong Reds fan or whatever. Eric's like, "Oh my God." And I go, and I'm just like, I'm meeting my Babe Ruth. I'm meeting my Pete Rose. Well, I guess Pete Rose is my Pete Rose, but I'm like, it's my favorite baseball player by a mile, by so far. And I just like that. "Oh my God, you're Eric Davis. Oh my God, you're the best." And I just started rattling off all of this stuff. And he started laughing so much. And I yelled, one of the first things I said to him, and I go, "Fuck Bob Trumpy." And he laughed so hard. And I go, they never give you any respect in Cincinnati. You were the best baseball player. And I started going, he is howling, laughing that someone came out of the nowhere at this party and started just praising him or whatever. And so we got a picture with him and everything. And yeah, that was that was a funny moment. So Bob Trumpy, I think, is where that story came from. Yes, Eric Davis, my very favorite.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, at this point in time, were you living in California?
No, still in Chicago, and we were trying to. Our sketch comedy troupe had been running for many years, and friends of ours were making it out here in L.A., and so we were able to scare up some meetings and stuff like that. And we would go to improv festivals, and we were the mainstay sketch group at a few improv festivals. And so we started trying to scare up meetings. We'd come out and do sometimes we were invited to come out and do a showcase show, but then we were go-getters, so we would set up our own showcase shows and tell all of our friends, like, please tell your agent or whatever. So it was that sort of thing. Come out here and do our raucous show, and a very raucous show. We ripped out, go back to my Just Say No play that I said, where I made a blood pact so that when the guy got shot, it would explode with blood, which nobody had gone that far. At the end, we ended every sketch show, and Schadenfreude must have done 300 shows. We ended every one by pulling a fake heart out of someone's chest and eating it, and blood would come down his mouth. And I built fake hearts for years and years and years. So it all comes back. Like all that Tom Savini stuff, I am not working in horror. I did not, make a horror movie or anything like that, but all that stuff comes back. They were like, who here knows how to make a fake heart? And I was like, got you covered. So yeah.
What was it that made you decide to make the move to California?
That was interesting. I actually kind of regret my timing, because there were some good opportunities still going on in Chicago that I really could have taken advantage of. And so I spent my first 2 years here just hearing of great stuff that I could be involved with in Chicago. But I felt I had lost a job. I had quit a job, and every once in a while, when I'm really dissatisfied without having any backup or any money in the bank, I'll still quit my job just on principle, and something else will pick me back up and loft me up. So I had quit a job. I was raising financing for independent films in Chicago, and I thought that was going to be my route into the film industry, but it was still more of a sales job. I mean, they went and made movies. I got to go to the set and everything like that. Got to give Sam Witwer his acting start. That was one of my productions.
Wow.
Yeah. Gave Sam Witwer his start in showbiz. I'd like to run into him sometime to share some stories from shooting those movies down in Alabama. But after I'd spent 2 years raising money through investors on an independent film, and we were finally making the movie. I finally went to go see that. So there was a sense of completion there that I was like, okay, that's done. And it was going through editing, and I thought I could maybe have a little more say in it, but it was just, at the end of the day, I was a salesman, and that's, I knew that, but as a kind of a go-getter, like, oh, this is my chance to get in to make a movie, and I thought, if this movie we made makes some money, then maybe they would go to other people that work there who had been loyal and say, all right, well, who else here wants to make a movie? So then just one day I was just like, you know what? I'm a salesman. I'm not doing anything artistic. My friends had started doing shows at the Second City. It just seemed like, my radio show had ended. So there was just like a bunch of things had come to an end. And I quit that job with no other prospects. And so a week later, I find myself in a temp office filling out a form to try and temp again, because I'm like, I don't know what else I can do. But the entire time I've been in Chicago, the entire time post-college, I am a video editor and shooter. But I'm not doing anything on a professional level. But I shot tons and tons and tons of shorts in the comedy scene in Chicago. And I taught myself digital editing because I graduated college without the invention of something like digital editing. Digital editing was brand new, and I had to learn that as soon as I left college. I worked on 35 millimeter film once, and then I worked on videotape a few times, and then it was like, it's going digital, you got to learn it. So I had built up enough experience, because I was still a trained editor, it's just learning a new medium. But I built up enough experience that I was like, if I got into a larger pool, basically, like if someone's looking for the least experienced editor in Chicago, I mean, the only editing jobs in Chicago were for the most experienced editor who knew Avid and who, had giant experience. But if I moved to California, where a bunch of my friends had moved, I had friends here. If I moved here, I could catch the drippings off of the better gigs. I could catch the least, I certainly have enough experience to do the slacker job on this or the slacker job on that. And so I came here and, just so little money in my pocket. It was a terrible idea, frankly. But I'm, as George Lucas would say, Francis Ford Coppola, jump off a cliff and somehow land in a pirouette on the cliff below. And it's like, I don't know how I do it, but I did come here, and like 2 weeks later, through a friend of a friend of a friend, I got a job that lasted me a year, and that was enough to start trying to get other gigs. I don't do any professional stuff right now, but what's fun is I still have the experience, when I do a short film with, Paul Preston and myself, and like, I see a lot of people that don't have access to editing or experience in editing, and so it's an advantage, and I do make money at it now. It is how I make my money. So I was right.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the timing may not have been the best, but
no,
it turned out good. So
yeah, I probably could have did the same thing in Chicago and started finding work as an editor there and maintain my connection to comedy, which would have been nice, because even though I'd heard about it, it's like the drop off in being able to do a comedy show. It's just you're suddenly in a new world here. In Chicago, it's like, oh, here's a back of a bar. Hey, bartender, can I do a show here Friday night? Yeah, sure. And that's all it was. Here, it's like, oh no, that's booked for this, or that's booked for that, or do you have insurance and all that sort of stuff. So you're like, suddenly I went from doing lots of comedy shows to zero comedy shows and only editing. So, but I've found my way back into comedy and stuff like that. So
that's good.
Yeah.
And speaking of comedy, we will use that as a segue, because I want to know, how did you meet Mark and Christian?
Segue! I met Mark and Christian because Paul Preston and his wife at the time, Karen Volpe, had a tremendous. They were so committed to being artists and living the artist lifestyle, no matter how poor it made them, that they just didn't want to do anything else. And and Karen's no longer with us, but she did have the attitude of, hey, I might not be here tomorrow. We're going to spend all of our money on this show. We're going to spend, and then we're going to take some time. We're going to make some more money, and we're going to spend all our money on this show. And we're just going to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, and always be producing was her motto. So one of these opportunities, Paul goes on a game show and wins. And wins a good amount of money, the game show amount of money, even after taxes. And he said, okay, but before that, Paul had a birthday, one of those, turned 40, I think, and was just like, I don't have a website. I'm not showing myself off as he was doing a email where he would do reviews of movies, and you would subscribe to his email and stuff like that. And he still does the big Oscar rant every year was his big one that you would always receive, even when I was in Chicago. And I had met them in Chicago. They were in another friend's comedy show, and I met them there. And Paul and I realized we both liked movies more than the average human being, and so we started going and seeing a lot of movies. But so he won this game show, and they went on a trip, I believe, or maybe that was he might have won 2 game shows, but one of the game shows he won, he said, I want to get this podcasting thing off the ground. We were doing YouTube videos in his garage, and he's like, I want to get this podcasting thing off the ground. And there was a thing called Toad Hop Network, and people were, podcasting every other year, podcasting is declared the wave of the future, the new economic model, and the year after that, it is declared over with, it's too saturated. But this is one of those times where it was the new economic model. The next year, it would be considered saturated. But it was the new economic model, and this company called Toad Hop was bringing people in, and they had a great little setup, much like Zoom here. Each person got their camera on top of their monitor, and they would, wave of the future. This is now... what is that, 2012 maybe? I think it was like 2012 or 13. The shows would look like what we have right here, and well, except there would be they had a switcher who would switch the camera, so it had a real professional look. Good microphones, there weren't, now people can buy these $1,000 microphones for $300. WGN microphones, you can buy that and do your podcast with. But they had the great equipment, everything. So we said, let's take our little garage show and let's bring it here and into the Toad Hop Studios, which was in the WeWork building on the corner of La Brea and Hollywood. And we were overachievers. We did lots and lots of sketches, lots and lots of written content. And Mark and Christian and Ken and their guests would be outside the glass watching us finish up our shows. And so they'd always catch a little bit of our show. Sometimes they'd arrive early and they're planning out their shows in the hallway. But sometimes they would also catch us in full costume and doing a full, we always liked the idea of the finale, like the Schadenfreude always called it the summit push. Your last 3 sketches have to be this sort of like progression. And I brought that mentality to the movie guys, which is what the show was called and is still called in some degree. That was the Showcast, is what we called that one. But so they would wait for us to clean up our costumes and and props, and they would watch the last sketch, and we'd always say hi and everything like that, and and greet them as they were coming in to do their show, and we'd hang out a little bit and watch their show and wave at them, and then we'd be off. And that was and then we figured out that for the amount we were paying for Toad Hop, we could buy some microphones and a mixing board, and we could actually take it back to the garage and continue the show that way for one low price of all the equipment, rather than paying a monthly price. And the camera setup is different. We went to like a one single camera, so it was a step down in that way. Then we lost touch with them for about 2 years, and then we went to Comic-Con. Or maybe it was WonderCon. No, I think it was Comic-Con. And there's Christian and Mark, and they're setting up a table to do a live broadcast and everything. And there were people wrestling behind them. And I'm going to bet, if I could go back psychically, I bet there's a lot of Schmoedown people I know now who are there doing this sort of thing, where I think they were going to do play-by-play for wrestling or something. But anyway, they were also going to do a live Schmo's Nose show. And we saw them there, and we reconnected and stuff like that. And I think we tried to make a plan to get together there, but we did not. Paul maintained a newsletter from everybody we had met. And as we ended our podcast of I think we did like 300 shows or something of the Showcast with Karen and Bart and myself and Steve Lewis early on, and at other times as a correspondent. Who you can hear on the Ford Fiesta now. But so we had wrapped that up. We just decided we're putting a lot of work. We're getting 100 views, and let's just reorganize and figure that out. And I think right before that, we did a push where we started a brand new show called The New Movie Show, which it turned out somebody already called their show that. But which was more of a variety, tight content show. And I think Paul put a blast email out about that, or maybe a blast email to our old list about his Oscar rant. And Christian gets it, and this is the first time he's heard from us in years. And he goes, "Oh my God, I completely forgot about you guys." And he goes, "We're doing something that totally up your alley." And so then Paul gives me a call, and he goes, "Guess who I just talked to? I just talked to Christian Harloff." I was like, "Oh God, I haven't heard that name in a while." And he goes, "What they're doing," because we were all wrestling fans too back in the day, Paul and Karen and I, back in Chicago. We got into wrestling in the Attitude Era. So, and we even did a show called the Improv Wrestling Federation, which was an improv game with rules. And when you broke those rules, you could hit your opponent. It was all fake. And, and you had managers for your improv team. I mean, it was like, oh my God, this is so near and dear to our heart. He laid the whole thing out. I was like, oh my God, we got to be a part of this. And so then we made an arrangement, and we pitched them a couple different types of characters for us. And they liked the bro idea, where we were like the bros. And so then we were kind of off and running. And then we're like, okay, well, now let's write more sketches. Now we get to write sketches for our intros and our entrances. And I'm like, oh, we're back doing comedy again, and we did that for a couple years. And then over quarantine, we started going going back to podcasting. You know, Paul and I just started a new show. So, yeah, that was the circuitous route. I tell you that the lesson in that for everybody is always be producing, of course, but just do it. Just, you got an idea? You think that's interesting? You want to talk about movies? There's somebody out there that'll give you the opportunity to do that. And it's who you meet along the way. Like, I did not burn up the field of improv comedy in Chicago, but I'll tell you what, I got some really good friends who are all doing really big things right now. And when the time comes and I make a movie, you know, I got people to watch that now. You know, when Paul and I get better and better at doing podcasts and better at being funny and better at doing sketches, there's someone out there to watch that we met years ago just because we did it. Just because we're like, I have the guts to say that I think I'm entertaining enough to do a podcast. I'm going to get out and say this, and I think my writing's good enough. I'm going to write a sketch for this show. And then, you know, Christian and Mark, who were just struggling in the same way themselves. And you know, interesting, because once we got into the Schmoedown, I didn't realize like what path these guys had taken, the Collider and all that. I didn't realize like where all these people came from. And so I started looking back on it, and I realized they did that thing called Popcorn Talk, that network. Paul and I were on the verge of doing a show there numerous times, and we even had a meeting where we went there and nobody showed up. We went to the meeting and nobody showed up. But I look back on all the old Schmoes Knows, I'm like, we didn't even know at the time that if we had started another show there, we would have been right there with Christian and Mark and Ken and JT and all that classic show from there. Like, we would have been doing the next show, but, you know, we would have been opening for them or whatever in that space. So if we had been persistent, you know, one more time and said, all right, let's go get a Popcorn Talk show. Let's pitch them another idea. It's like we would have met up with them then. It's just funny how all these circles, you know, interweave. And that goes back to me quitting random jobs, not knowing what's coming next, because every time I put myself in that position, I'm like, somebody comes out of nowhere. I'm like, I didn't know your sister's cousin's friend was here and needed an editor. You know.
Yeah. Now, what is, right now you're playing in the Schmoedown.
If you want to call it that.
Well, you are a competitor technically.
I'm a fixture. All I want to be is a fixture in life, okay? You know, I don't need to be a big winner. I don't need huge success. I don't need to make a blockbuster movie. I just want to be a fixture.
You are definitely that. You're going to be for a long time in the Schmoedown, I think.
God bless you.
I mean, obviously, this is going to come out before the end of the season, but I just want to say, I have a feeling you're going to be managing a faction next season, and I certainly hope that's true.
Ooh, I hope so. That would be cool. I mean, I have no idea. There's a lot of layers between the nonsense that Paul and I do, or you know, the Dungeon or Kaiser and I do. You know, there's a lot more that goes into everything, and a lot of layers that make stuff happen or not happen. But I feel like I've laid the seeds. You know, I mean, I feel like it's almost the same analogy as, you know, I quit my job, jump out of the plane, sew the parachute on the way down. It's like, you know, Kaiser leaves town and he's like, can you manage? And I'm like, yes, I can. Oh boy, can I? Can I do this? Yes, I can. Should I have said yes to this? You know, that's my thing. But it did turn out, I mean, it turned out really fun. Like, I got to do a lot of bits about how, you know, I want to make a run for Manager of the Year. I think that would be really funny. Not true, but funny. You know, I went to a high school where the one of the big nerds, who was a popular nerd, ran for prom queen, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's hilarious!" And he got it. So I'm like, I'm doing the prom queen thing. You know, the prom king thing for the Schmoedown. I'm going to run for Manager of the Year, and I think that will be a fun bit, and I'm going to try and make a lot of noise about that. But yeah, I think I've set myself up to be certainly in the talks, certainly in the running. So I mean, and even if I don't, make a stink about how I didn't and how I should be. I mean, you know, it's going to breed, no matter how next season goes, because this shakeup's going to be real interesting, because the factions are going to be 5 people, and there's going to be less of them, more of them. I don't know, but yeah. So hey, thank you. And I've also heard, I don't go on Reddit that much, but Drew said there's a whole a bunch of people talking on there about that I should get a team next season. So that would be cool. And I'm glad people are talking about it, because I'm sure that makes it, you know, up to the higher office
Yeah. Yes. I hope so for sure. I think you'd be good at it from both the competitive, like the rules and the technical side, and obviously the character side. So
Yeah. I just like that all this dumb stuff I've done has a use in some way. I mean, you look at the Schmoedown, my obsession with movies, my obsession with acting, performing, improvising, comedy, doing podcasts, doing content, like that all just came around. It's like, I don't know, did I secretly invent this for me to be a part of in some way? It's so perfect. And that's why, sometimes when I talk Paul down from the tree, talk Paul down from the ledge, when he's not winning and stuff like that, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this game doesn't matter. The winning this game doesn't matter, and this is the attitude I have to take. I'm an 0-6 competitor. I'm like, this game doesn't matter. This is fun. We're here to have some fun and start some crap. And you know what? Maybe win a match because we do know movies. We're going up against the Dan Merles of the world. I mean, you're like, I do pretty good in softball. Let me try and hit a fastball off of Nolan Ryan. Like, you're going to have some trouble, but you're still playing baseball,
Who happens to be my all-time favorite pitcher.
Oh, yeah? Not Rob Dibble?
Well, like I said, I grew up in Texas for the first part of my life.
Right. Oh, right.
Those games, and he was pitching in that time. So
yeah, and then he went to the Texans, didn't he? He stayed in Texas the whole time. Yeah, wow. Amazing.
But yes, this has been great, man. Thank you so much for your time here. As I always do, though, in honor of John Lipton, as this show is inspired by Inside the
Right.
I ask everyone the 10 questions that John would ask his guests at the end of each episode. So in honor of Mr. Lipton, Adam Witt, what is your favorite word?
Oh, my favorite word. Well, let me think of one that I overuse right now. I'll happen upon a word and I'll just start overusing it. It's 2 words, but I have adopted 100%. When someone says something, I go 100%, 100%. Is that my favorite word? That's the one I overuse right now. What is my favorite word? I'll go with, this is a good question. Schadenfreude. That's the name of my sketch comedy troupe. That's my favorite word.
I like it. What is your least favorite word?
I thought of one, my family used to go around because some people have words that just really bug them. Like my cousin, it was like moist. He hated the word moist or something like that. And the whole family went around like, oh, I hate this word. I hate that word. For some reason, one word that always bugged me was platter. There's something about the plosive in certain words that just sounds gross. Platter. Ugh, just say plate. Platter. Platter. I mean, listen how that word is vomited up.
I cannot argue that. What turns you on?
What turns me on?
Yes.
Oh, making the moment of inception of an idea, improv, that moment where you get that idea and you go with it, and that just grabbing that. I used to teach sketch writing at the Second City, and I taught an early sketch writing class. They hadn't got into the form yet. They hadn't got into putting shows together. But they had trouble getting people to start being creative. So they said, we're creating a initial class that people have to take before they take level 1 to get them just starting to ideate, to get ideas. And that's snatching that. If you ever listen to, there's a great David Lynch book, an audiobook called Catching the Big Fish. And he talks about ideas and pulling them out of nowhere as dipping the net into the stream. But that moment of inception of the idea, and the fact that idea could come in the middle of the plot when you finally get the whole thing written, but like taking that idea, and I think it was Oliver Stone in a directing book. There's an incredible directing book which I read twice a year in which all the directors give all their opinions, but that he said directing is taking that idea that gives you jazz, that makes you want to make an entire movie, which is incredibly hard. It takes an incredible amount of steps, and it may take you 4, 5, 6, 7 years, but taking that very idea and holding on to it for that long, through every day, every shot, every unloading. Oh, we can't park the van. You're holding on to that idea and to try and get that so that very spark, that improv, that moment when you're standing there on stage with another improviser and neither of you has said anything, and that very first word you say, that's going to send the whole thing off into another direction. We don't know where we are, who we are, what's about to happen. But yeah, that moment of getting ideas. Ooh, that's a good one. That's the jazz. That's the jam.
And what turns you off?
What turns me off? People who say I'm bored. I've never been bored in my life. I mean, maybe if I had, maybe taking a test, taking the LSAT or whatever it was, not the SAT, but the other one, the ACT. Taking the ACT, I was bored. You've locked me off. I can't look at movies. I can't talk to people. I can't do this. All I have to do is look at this paper. I'm bored, okay? But even in school, I was a terrible student because my head was just awash with imagery. I'm never bored. I hated school. I was never bored. And when I hear someone go, ugh, I'm bored, I'm like, fuck you. Get more interested. What is wrong with you? There's so much interesting out there. You're bored? Oh my God. That's such a curse word. I can't even handle the word I'm bored. I'm bored? Try harder. My God. That's on you. You realize that's on you, right? I'm bored. Yes, you are. Because maybe you're boring? Yeah. Curse word, bored. Ugh. Never said that in my life. Maybe I thought it, but only while taking the ACT.
What sound or noise do you love?
Well, farts are so funny. But what one do I love? Oh, you know what's a fun one that I just discovered? Here, let me do it.
Yes.
That's a fun one.
Yeah, that is.
Farts are always funny, of course.
Yeah.
I did a sketch once in Schadenfreude that nobody wanted to do but me. But you had to admit it was funny. It was we in the middle of the show. We did about 10 sketches in the course of the show. In the middle of it, after one of our big sketches, I come out and say, and now we'd like to do a dramatic scene. We understand. We could come out here and do a bunch of laughs, but we want to show you that we have range. We want to show you that we are deeper than a puddle. Anybody could come out here and do a bunch of jokes and stuff. So we would like to present this dramatic scene to show you our range. And it is called, A Father's Promise or something like that. And I go, oh, and I understand you did come to a comedy show, so we're going to do a dramatic scene. But of course, we're just going to play some fart sound effects just so you don't get bored with this whole thing. And then we would do this dramatic scene, and everything was punctuated with a fart, and God, that was funny. I thought it was.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Sound or noise do I hate? Oh my God, motorcycles. Can we ban these things? I don't want to sound like the old fart, but I've been saying this for years. Nobody can go out in the street right now and yell as loud as a motorcycle and have anybody find it acceptable. But these motorcycles, they take the mufflers off and they drive through. And you're walking down the street, you're talking to a friend. I'm talking at this volume. I can be talking at this volume, and we have to stop talking for that? For what freedom? For that guy's joy and having a loud motorcycle? I don't even know how it became acceptable. It just seems like, if you want to move out to the country, I get that. You can shoot guns in the country. You can't shoot a gun out here in the street. It's loud and it's dangerous. This motorcycle's not dangerous, except to that guy. But you know what? I don't think I should also have in my head the thought, I hope that guy wrecks. That's mean. Because he's so loud, I'm like, I hope he crashes. I hope he crash. When a car goes by so loud, so fast, you're like, I hope you crash. Oh my God. Why would I think that? So if it was always illegal to be that incredibly loud, like if I put a tornado siren up on my house, could I run it twice a day the same way motorcycles come by? No. Why? Because it's loud. And yet that standard doesn't apply to motorcycles. I mean, for some reason, there's some sort of freedom that we're protecting, the freedom to not have mufflers. Find that in the Constitution. Hate it.
Oh, what is your favorite curse word?
Motherfucker. You mother, and I call things motherfucker. That's what's so dumb. You're trying to plug something in, you knock something over. Yeah, it's definitely motherfucker. Because you'll go to get a glass out of the cabinet and things will just always be perfectly stacked so that when you grab the one thing, 12 things fall. Like when that happens, I just go, motherfucker. Well, it's that difficult? I'm just trying to pull one thing out of there and everything has to fall? Motherfucker.
What profession other than yours would you like to attempt?
Well, I mean, my current profession would be video editor, and it would definitely be filmmaker, producer. Yeah, I mean, I'm good at all that stuff. I mean, I really got good over the years at directing. I mean, it's been my interest forever. I've studied it forever, and I've worked for so many directors who suck. And you just go, oh, that guy somehow accidentally got to direct this movie because he doesn't know what he's doing. That gets really frustrating. And but also I'm a Midwestern kid, so if you're like, I'm not going to go out and be like, I'm the greatest in the world, I'm like, oh yeah, I've studied it. I'm pretty good. But I'm actually quite good at it. I really enjoy doing it. And like every once in a while, something would come along. Like my friend was introducing an app a few years ago, a friend of a friend. And, I just threw out there, I'm like, yeah, I'm a filmmaker. I'm a director. Just show him a couple of my shorts and stuff like that. And he's like, hey, could you do a commercial for me? And it was so much fun. And I am a very good director, and I wrote and directed it as well. And also, the great thing is, my writing can be very dense. And I do love a good, dense joke. But very few people can speak the dense jokes I write, and I have to be careful when I'm giving scripts to other people that I have to rewrite it to de-densify it. But over the course of 8 years of doing the movie Showcast, if you look at any of the previews we did for coming attractions on that, I write these incredibly dense jokes that Paul, Karen, and Bart and Steve could rip off. They could whip them out. And I'm like, I don't know how you say this stuff that I'm writing last minute, before the show. So I wrote this very dense sketch commercial. It's like a long form commercial, like 5 minutes. And I was like, after I was done writing, I was like, well, who's going to be able to say this stuff? And I was like, I got it. I'm the director. I'm hiring Paul, Karen, Bart. I hired all the movie guys and other comedians from Chicago, and put this commercial for this app together, and then put the whole production together. I was like, I forgot I could do this. I found a location, and the funny thing is, how I'm talking about how people come back into your life and how you never be mean to anybody. Always be the best friend to everybody, because they'll come back and they'll help you. You're going to need their help later on. Never beat anyone up to get up that ladder. It's not a ladder worth climbing. Be nice to everybody up that ladder, and be a good person. I mean, people like me. I come off well in a room because this is who I am. But funniest story, my prom date from high school had a winery next door to where we shot. And I ran into her and I said, are there any other spaces open around here? And she goes, well, I'll give you my landlord's name. We found a good price. We found a nice little spot, and we shot this commercial. And I was like, wow, I put a whole production together, which, I used to do a lot, and it's hard. And unless you have money, it's real hard. And so director. And I will be a director. I will be making movies and stuff like that. I just not doing it right now.
What profession would you not like to attempt?
I would hate to go back to work at the recycling plant. That was one day I had a summer job at my university, and it was kind of an odd nightmare scenario for what it was that I was supposed to get on the truck. I was a mover at my university. Actually, here's the weird twist of fate. all of my friends at my university had lawn mowing jobs in the summer. You would go mow the grass, and this is heaven for me. Heaven for me is putting on my headphones, listening to an audiobook or a commentary at that time, sometimes music, but like lessons and learning and this sort of stuff, and just zoning out for hours. And mowing lawns at the university lets you do that. You put your headphones on, you'd meet at the morning, and they go, hey, you go mow North Quad, you go mow South Quad, and everybody would split off for the day. And my friends told me you'd finish mowing, and there's nobody around to watch. You just sit under a tree, whatever, do whatever, read a book, do whatever. So I went to my neighbor, because he worked for facilities, and I said, but my neighbor works for facilities. Wrong facilities. He worked in trucking and moving on campus, which was doing all the work of a mover for $3 an hour. It's like, oh. So all my friends went off and had the posh job, and I was like, and I'm moving furniture. It was, again, as I say about all my jobs, beats working. There could be blacktopping a roof in the summer be like a terrible job, and I've never done it. But one day, weirdly, and this is how I can also sink into the background and not be Adam Witt all the time. Sometimes I'm like, if I'm in a situation where I'm kind of in over my head or whatever. And I guess I sort of sloughed myself into the background enough to end up on the wrong truck to the wrong place. And I ended up working in a recycling plant for the day. And I wasn't supposed to go out there. I was supposed to go with the trucking and moving. But I just sort of like hemmed and hawed and not paid attention to when they said, hey, everybody for this go here, everybody for this go here. And that goes back to Adam Witt, who would sit in the back of the class and play with Star Wars action figures. And then they would call his name and be like, what are we talking about? You can't answer the question. You're not listening. I'm like, no, because this bores me. I was bored back then. But working in a recycling plant. What job wouldn't I want to have? Because, I've had office jobs, and I think office jobs I could have made work. That's not the worst thing in the world. I had some good office jobs. So I think, working in the recycling plant, working in a smelly plant, I think, a smelly, dirty plant with no air conditioning. You're there all day, you're sweating, you're starting to smell like garbage. That's a tough job. That's a really tough job. And I guarantee that the people I was working next to, they had to come back the next day. And that was a tough job. So I wouldn't want to go back to the recycling plant. And I admire anybody that works in plants, and, my whole family is GM plants and everything like that. So yeah, it's probably not for me. I know I could do it. I could do anything. Because I suffered and sweated and, I haven't lived the most posh life. I've dug ditches. I've dug holes and post holes and things like that. I've done all the stuff, but and making movies is the struggle that I would prefer to do. Which still there's no air conditioning. You're out on set and you got all kinds of other problems, but those are problems I love. Yeah.
And finally, sir, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the person?
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's, I've never thought of answering this question, and an answer came very quickly. So I get to heaven, and God sees me and says, oh, hey, big fan. Adam Witt, big fan.
Adam Witt, I am a big fan, too.
Oh, God bless you. You don't know how well that makes my day as a a kid who was I was kind of the nerd, bullied, none of that stuff was kind of cool back then. So and I have, I think we all have lots of trauma from various parts of our life and stuff, and it's still quite easy for me to get down on myself, and even after a huge accomplishment or something. And so, when I hear stuff like that, I appreciate it. I appreciate it because I'm just doing my art. I'm just doing my nonsense. And it means a lot to hear you and on some of these other reaction shows I'm on, and people say they're a big fan, or in the comments say they're a big fan. And I'm like, it's really turned some of my days around, doing an interview like this. There was a interview I did like this on one of the reaction shows like 2 months ago where I had a terrible, just depression, just something, it not even sprung from anything, like seasonal, something just got down on myself and just spent the day saying, I'm just such a piece of shit. And just all this bad thoughts that go through your head that, you can't control and you have to work through. And I went on one of these shows and I came off of it going, I'm great at this. I'm a good person. All of my every path I've taken to this moment has really mattered, and I make a difference to people. So thank you so much. It really makes a big difference. And I know you've had other people from the Schmoedown, and I think all of us are gregarious, open people, love the crowd and love to entertain people, stuff like that. But I think we all walk away and go, yeah, I don't know, I'm okay.
Yep, don't we all, sir?
Yeah.
Thank you so much again for your time. And this has been just absolutely great, especially being able to talk about locations and places that we've both experienced.
Yeah, that was fun. Boy, you jogged my memory on a few things there. That's cool. That's fun. Yeah, and I can go on and on about that sort of stuff. So you have allowed me to go on and on. What are we at, an hour 40 here? Yeah.
But hey, maybe we'll do a part 2. But until that time, thank you again for your time, and everyone, have a great and safe week.
Thank you.
Be sure to check out Speaking of Schmoedown, a sports talk show devoted to the movie trivia. Schmoedown airs Saturdays at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, here on the Jcast Network.